All right, welcome to the Sunday Wire. I'm Bryan McClain, otherwise known as Hesher, here at Alternate Current Radio. We're streaming live your weekly news omnibus here at ACR and, of course, at 21stcenturywire.com. Hello to you out there in the 21stcenturywire.com chat. Good to see you there. And hello to everybody in the Sunday Wire live chat on the Alternate Current Radio / Boiler Room Discord server. Wonderful to see so many of our regulars and friends out there, and you new listeners as well, and viewers. We're also streaming video on YouTube, on Rumble, and Rockfin, and X.com today. So shout out to everybody over on those platforms in those chats as well. Try to keep an eye on all those chats, but we'll see what we can do here. Yes, sitting in for Patrick Henningsen once again today. Go to 21stcenturywire.com for all the latest news going on over there. And I'm here with Adam Clark, aka Ruckus. Ruckus, what's up? Welcome to the Wire.
Hello. Yes, very good to be here. Thanks again for having me. And always happy that we're at least able to keep the Sunday Wire going in the absence of Patrick Henningsen temporarily. So that's a good thing. That's what we're doing today. And I'll let us just get into it, I suppose. There's a lot to talk about today.
Yeah. I'm a little unsure where I want to start, but I guess since yesterday or last week on Sunday Wire episode 515, this is episode 516. But just as we closed out episode 515, there was another alleged attack or attempted attack on Donald J. Trump. So that was interesting. I think I couldn't remember if I actually made the comment or if I was just thinking it, but I remember closing that episode out and thinking, we were talking about the potential of him getting sentenced, going to Rikers, all these strange things that could happen between now and the election. And as soon as we shut it down, it was like, oh, there was another potential shooter. This time it was interrupted. So the shooter didn't get any shots off at Trump, as far as I can tell. It does look like his security detail engaged the location where the shooter was, but pretty far distance. And I haven't been able to verify this, but I have heard they were using pistols at that distance to get that guy out of there, which seems a little odd to me. But anyways, we got this character brought an AK-47 style rifle to the fence, approximately 500 yards by some reports to where Donald Trump was on the eighth hole, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a golf person, but yeah. And the weirdest thing, Ruckus, to me, well, there's a lot of weird things. I don't even know if we should bother unpacking all the strange anomalies and everything. At this point, I'm starting to wonder if it's even worthwhile to do. But the guy got away. The guy got away, and the mass media is not really portraying it that way. But he would have gotten away if it hadn't been for a citizen who took a picture of the license plate and called it in to the local cops. So this whole thing was very interesting and strange timing as we were just shutting off Sunday Wire 515.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. We were also worried about whether or not the world was going to explode, courtesy of World War III. Anyways, yeah, a lot is going on. There's so many conflicting reports about that. I mean, take it as, all of this with a grain of salt, because the way it's being, reported from one outlet to the other paints a picture, a narrative, a story, and just glosses over a lot of the important stuff, which are the facts. So yes, if I'm not mistaken, Hesher, the official story from all sides and the spokespeople and the cops and everything, the investigators, is it was one Secret Service agent, one handgun on their part that was fired at least in the direction of the would-be sniper with an AK-47. They're like, what? All right, anyway. And the guy took off. And yes, I suppose that the story, although this is not a fact, we don't know whether or not the guy would have gotten away if it wasn't for an intervening, a good person who saw something and did something. Just want to point that out. So I don't know. I have to. I have not seen this person interviewed personally. So I don't know. I'll take that with a huge grain of salt. It sounds nice, that's for darn sure. But that just paints this political narrative that, see, this guy who was probably on a list somewhere, the FBI, like, he was on our list. He would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for a good pro-Trump, American citizen doing their diligent duty and whipping out their technological smartphone and doing the right thing and snapping a photo of somebody without their permission. Anyways, yeah, it's a giant weird slippery slope, and again, I take it all with a giant grain of salt. But the person in question, who they did arrest, which I'm happy to say, without shooting this person, they have him in custody. So there's a lot more to be learned and discovered, assuming they don't Epstein him in jail and all that fun stuff, Hesher. But the person themselves is quite a fascinating
Yeah.
character, and there's just so much to get into with that. That is where we're probably going to have trouble determining what is real and what is not. So I've been sitting on the fence on this one for quite a while. But right out of the gate, I mean, the fact that the guy was using an AK-47 makes absolutely probably no sense to me. Technically, judging from where he was, he probably would have done better with a handgun if he wanted to get the president. Just saying. And then there's so many weird things. Like they say, oh, he was going to film it with his GoPro. Well, sure. That's kind of hard to do when you keep your GoPro inside of a bag sitting on the fence and you're not using it. So that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, there's a lot about what this guy was planning on doing. Maybe he was caught by surprise. Maybe Trump came through earlier than he was planning. Who the heck knows? And I think some of these things could have been planted on the scene afterwards, or just reported in the news. We really don't know. Did you go down there, Hesher, and investigate the crime scene?
Nope. Like most Americans, I was only able to look at the pictures and read the reports and build a giant dossier of anomalies and all that good stuff. One of my favorite parts was one of the ways I think we can understand that they're going to memory hole this one, just like the last one, is they tried to deflect from the story even breaking right after it happened. Either that or it was meant to look that way. But the first reports that I saw said, oh, it wasn't associated with Trump. It just simply was in the vicinity of where he was at. I think they even said it was a disagreement between two people or something like that. And then that disappeared real quick. And it was like, yeah, we've got a guy with a camera, AK-47 rifle, hung two bags on the chain link fence there where he was posted up in the bushes. And yeah, this is just getting so insane. And this guy, talk about known wolves. This guy traveled to Ukraine apparently and was trying to recruit mercenaries to fight on behalf of Ukraine. So I don't think many Americans are going to go do that activity without some aspect of our government knowing about it. So it's a very strange character for sure.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to know what he does for a living, to be traveling all around the world, meeting with all sorts of interesting people. I don't know if I could pull. I'll try to pull it up, but there was somebody, I shared it, I believe, on my X account, where somebody had caught onto all of the various places and people that this Dylan Ruth, is that his name?
I believe so.
Has been photographed with. This guy has rubbed elbows, shaken hands, taken pictures with all sorts of interesting people that really, really, really makes one scratch their heads. Hesher, I will do my best to find that for you so we can play it.
Yeah, and then there's the whole BlackRock. The BlackRock thing rears its ugly head once again, too. Claims that this guy was involved in another BlackRock commercial or something like that. I mean, what are the chances this is that would happen twice? And we've been saying since the first attempt, a bunch of us have been saying, "Hey, this is not over. There's going to be more." And what happened last Sunday definitely proved that to be the case. And then there was there was also the 20 or so people that got sick that were, or I don't know if they were sick or if they experienced some sort of chemical exposure or what, but like eye irritations and some strange symptoms from people that had been standing in a shot with Trump at one of his rallies. So now there's a question mark on that one too. I haven't heard the update on that, but it's just like this stuff's going to keep happening, I'm afraid. And who knows? Maybe our friend Jason Burmis is right, and next we'll see some sort of plane crash, car bomb, explosion, something like that. So, um, just underscores how the madness of where we're at right now in the power politics realm as we come into election season, and we're getting pretty close here.
Well, I'm at least quite confident, Hesher, hopefully, knock on wood, that nothing like an exploding pager will be taking out the former president. Just some
Oh,
crazy, yeah. Anyways, yeah, lots of stuff to talk about. Like I said, Hesher.
yeah, definitely. I'll
There's
play
that
that.
link for if you want to see some of these interesting connections that a lot of folks might have missed.
Yeah, let's take a look here.
So who wants to play a game?
Oh, great. Looks like I mute so many tabs just to make sure things don't go wrong.
I heard it.
There we go. All right. I couldn't, and I want to hear it, so here we go. We'll try one more time. This ought to work this time.
So who wants to play a game? I got a fun game that we can play. Let's call it the Kevin Bacon game. 7 degrees of separation, except I don't think we're going to need to go to 7 degrees. Does anyone know who this guy is? Jose Andres, World Central Kitchen, was nominated by Democrats for a Nobel Peace Prize. Look, he is obviously very well known. Oatmeal Brain knows him. He even gave him a double-armed handshake. And then the president even tapped him to lead the president's council on sports, fitness, and nutrition. This guy must be really important. Oh, I mean, of course, he's friends with Harrison Walls too. Why wouldn't he be? I mean, looks like he's a celebrity chef to the Democrats. But wait, he's also friends with this guy. Whoa, that's weird. Oh, hold on a second. He's friends with him too? Wow. What is this guy doing hanging out with this guy in Ukraine? And hanging out with this guy. And hanging out with this guy. And apparently he's hanging out with those two also. Do you think that maybe someone should take a look at that? You think that might be worth looking at? What do you think? I told you, we didn't even need 7 degrees. We had 2 degrees of separation between some weirdo and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Zelensky. And he's a chef. He's a famous chef. Knows all of them. Weird.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird, little bit sus, just a little bit, isn't it? And of course, that's the celebrity chef that was involved with the bringing meals, pre-packaged, somewhat gourmet meals to Gaza. Okay. Yeah. And of course, he's got 3 names. I guess we'll throw that out there. They always give us the 3 name shooters, and his middle name sounds like something right out of Harry Potter. So there you go, a little bit of magic for you.
Yes, of course, 21st Century Wire has done a fantastic piece about this a little while ago. I'll share the link. I'll flash it on screen in case people missed it. The title is Another Known Wolf, Trump Shooter Ryan Ruth. Who is he? I misspoke earlier. I said Dylan Ruth, but isn't that interesting that some of these shooters have similar names? That was something else that nobody really mentioned. But it's
Yeah.
Ryan Ruth.
Yeah, Ryan Ruth. Yeah, great article up there at 21st Century Wire. It's up there on the Newswire account. Highly recommend. Definitely a lot to go through with this guy. My goodness, if there wasn't a bazillion things going on, we could probably do a whole show on it. But quite frankly, I'm finding these things to be getting pretty tedious here, Ruckus.
Yeah, and I couldn't find the other scissor reel. I know there's scissor reels out there. They're probably people have already seen them on X where they show all of the other connections. But this one guy found that one extra connection to the World's Kitchen guy, and I was like, I think this is the only person who's noticed this. Thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, good one there. And if you want to find that, that's on the Insurrection Barbie account, boosted over there, at Defiantly Free with a Y. Yeah, so we had that happen, and Ruckus, you mentioned explosions and World War III, and pretty much as soon as we closed out Sunday Wire, we got a dose of that as well. It looks as though Mossad or IDF or who knows, some sort of Five Eyes conglomeration pulled off a I don't even know what to call this kind of attack. A pager attack. They pulled off a communications technology attack, and a lot of people were injured by that. Pretty. That whole story was definitely a bit of a mind bender. It took a lot of people a minute to shake off the dissonance of pagers being used at all in the modern times, but when you look into why and how Hezbollah uses pagers, walkie-talkies, somewhat lower tech communications, it starts to make sense because they've actually had, big wins in the past by keeping their command and control network off of cellular, which is seems to make a lot of sense. It shouldn't surprise anybody when you look into the history of this, but yeah, it appears as though things were blowing up. The first day we had the pagers, the next day we had walkie talkies, and now there are also reports of solar panels exploding. So I don't know what to make of all this, man. It's like how many supply chains had to be disrupted, subverted. How did all this happen? I'd love to see, the data on this all come out. It is coming out slowly, but it's difficult to parse because, of course, companies that make a lot of this tech are putting their own comments out, and a lot of finger pointing going on right now.
Oh yeah, it certainly brings a whole new meaning to electronic warfare now, doesn't it? Speaking of that, actually, I'm sure that the probably the true military term for what we saw happen is probably considered, at least under an umbrella form, unconventional warfare tactic of some sort. Most of us who are observing it would say, well, yeah, if this was coming from quote unquote the other side, from the axis of evil, like this would easily, quickly, without a doubt and without any question be labeled as anyone a terrorist attack. But since it came from alleged, actually I don't, dude, I slipped up. Has Israel officially admitted that this was them? Because I don't even know if that's a thing. I don't even know if they've officially said, yeah, that was us. But I mean, everyone assumes, and it's not like they came out. I know that they didn't come out and say, oh, this wasn't us. But the United States did almost immediately. They sent their one of their favorite drunks, Kirby, out on the podium, and he's like, U.S. had absolutely nothing to do with this. And I'm like thinking, did anyone ask? I think they were just asking, were you aware of this attack? We had nothing to do with it. It was a very strange response, very telling. But again, I don't know 100%. Maybe or someone in the chat room, did Israel come forward and say, yes, that was us. We're badass. We're cool. Because it was not badass and it was not cool, and it was something that if I were them, I would probably not want to take credit for, because well, like they care about injuring innocent civilians. They have their own doctrines and beliefs about that. So I suppose that they would come out and take credit for it. I know lots of people who are pro-Israel have been celebrating it, which I also found quite disgusting. But yet here we are. And then as far as the solar panels go, I'm not 100% sure that's related or if that was accurate. It might just be part of, because, it definitely serves the interest of Israel to scare the crap out of people who are their enemies, making them think that at any moment we can just cause your electronic devices to explode. And then that's, again, I don't know, a terrorist tactic. Just saying, Hesher.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I did see somewhere where the Israelis were saying that they had, but I don't have that to hand. So if someone wants to drop us a link, we'll put it on screen for you. Let's see here. Let's take a look. Yeah. So we've got some video footage allegedly of solar panels and things. So let's take a look at that. This is just a really short one. It's like 6 seconds. You can't really take too much away from it, but here's a quick shot. So buildings and smoke, buildings and smoke. But the quote there is solar panels, smartphones, intercoms, batteries, and radios are all exploding right now in Beirut and other cities in Lebanon. And we had Infidel Pharaoh with us on Boiler Room a couple nights back, and he said that he got a call from someone that he knows in Lebanon, and that they were turning off and taking baby monitors out of the house because they were so concerned. So, regardless of what the truth on the ground is, it's definitely affecting people, and people are concerned.
Yep. I mean, like I say, that probably serves Israel very well to have all this mysteriousness about it when in fact it probably was some sort of simple covert to undercover action to intervene with the supply chain and do a lot of these things that we've already been hearing about from some of the actual journalists out there who are doing their jobs in this department. So. But again, leave the people wondering. I made a joke on Boiler Room about my Bluetooth earpiece, exploding my head, So I don't think that's going to happen. So, if you're out there thinking that, like, I don't know, there's some mysterious, I'll just say, Jewish space laser that's causing electronics to explode, stop. It doesn't work like that. So, but yes, there's a very real thing that they did, and it's very disgusting, very underhanded, very unconventional, and they're probably very proud of themselves. Good for them.
Yeah, probably. Um, and then we had a big explosion in southern Lebanon last night before last, I think, and it looks as though Hezbollah has been hitting northern Israel with a buttload of missiles, also. So the battle seems to be intensifying here and expanding into Lebanon.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was hoping we might lead up to that explosion because there was another explosion that took place in between that was quite something else as well, involving Russia. That we've been seeing a lot of explosions. Is this the week of explosions, Hesher? Is that what's
It
going on?
certainly feels
The
explosive.
world is blowing up.
Yeah.
It's probably climate change.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
wait,
sure,
don't
right?
give them any ideas, Adam. Oh my goodness.
Gotta just be climate change. But yeah, the pager thing, I mean, my goodness, an anonymous user on probably 4chan or Reddit here, someone reposted it on X, writes, Ted Kaczynski mailed a few bombs to specific people and is the most evil man in history. Yet Mossad makes IED pagers and puts them into supply chain, killing who knows how many people, including children, and praised as heroes by many.
What would have happened if, like, the shipments got crossed and somebody else received those pagers by accident? That would have been really bad.
Yeah, you got to wonder if that maybe that happened in many cases. Michael Tracy writes, "This is what happened to a 9-year-old girl who was killed in the Lebanon pager attack. Such incredible technological innovation. Couldn't be more impressed." He's using sarcasm there, and this is what he posted. A young girl named Fatima was in the kitchen on Tuesday when a pager on the table began to beep, her aunt said. She picked up the device to bring it to her father and was holding it when it exploded, mangling her face and leaving the room covered in blood. So, yeah, and we saw the video in the market area. One blew up in a guy's waist pack. He had a fanny pack of some sort on, and he goes down while shopping for produce. I couldn't help but notice there were a couple small children right near him when that happened.
Oh yeah, and I don't really want to do any investigating into the research for how these explosives work. If there's like an area, like, because the guy that you just mentioned, the one with the fanny pack, I get the impression, as most things that explode, what we saw coming out the side of him that was, could have possibly potentially affected the surrounding folks, and there were certainly a guy right next to him was like, oh, and he ran away. But when he went down, the way he went down, I surmise that he took the full front force of that explosion, and I don't think he got back up. Is my supposition. Sad to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, looked like he was down for the count there. He certainly didn't move or to get back up while they were filming there. It looks like we've got a guest joining us now. Looks like Basil Valentine is dropping into the Sunday Wire. Hello, Basil. How are you?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm very well, thank you. It's great to be with you.
It's great.
Like old times.
Yeah, a lot
Howdy,
going
Basil.
on here. So Basil, do you know
Well,
Ruckus?
I was listening to just what you were saying about the exploding pages. You know, this is textbook terrorism.
It really is.
Remotely controlled explosive devices to kill innocent civilians. This, we are constantly told, is terrorism. And yet, for some reason, Western governments have failed to condemn it as such. Simon Harris, the Taoiseach of Ireland, described it as despicable, which is about as strong a term as any Western leader has used. But the Labour Party conference has started in Liverpool today. There's no widespread condemnation of this totally out of control homicidal maniac, which is what Israel is at the moment. Killing anybody and everybody indiscriminately. The same day as that, they bombed another school, United Nations refugee school in Gaza, killing dozens. We're just in an era of unprecedented carnage, and all of it coming from one direction. And as you can see there from James Wood, unfortunately, particularly in the United States, but also to a lesser extent in Europe, people's minds have been so warped, so full of hatred of anybody, Muslim, basically, the othering and dehumanization, both of Palestinians here, of Lebanese, of anybody associated with Hezbollah, means that there are cheerleaders for this kind of barbarism, which is every bit as bad as the barbarism itself.
Yeah. Seeing the responses of some people is a little bit disturbing. Here's if you're just listening, we had on the screen there a picture of a toilet, a loo, that looked extremely damaged. Thing just completely blown up. Here's another one too. Look at what Patrick Bet David said, and put along with this video here. He said, "Testicles gone. Israel hacked the pagers in their pockets and blew up the balls of Islamic terrorists, Hezbollah. Even Meta can't argue their target. Even Meta can't target their target audience this specifically." And he's got
It's
this.
just repulsive.
It is.
It's off the charts repulsive.
Yeah, it's really staggering. I mean, it's a pretty gory scene in I don't know if this is a hospital or outside one of the incidents, but my goodness. Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing that cuz I don't want to look at it anymore. Basil, do you know did Israel, did the IDF, did Mossad have they taken responsibility for this officially yet? Basil, are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Do you know if
Okay. They're proud of it. Absolutely, 100%. And it's gone hand in glove with further airstrikes in Lebanon. More people killed there, including children. What it represents as well is the total 100% failure of US foreign policy which is to stop this kind of thing happening. And yet, because Biden is so weak personally and has, supplied the bombs for the genocide, Israel quite understandably feel they can do what the hell they like because there's no meaningful pushback from the West. We had Linda Thomas Greenfield, the US ambassador to the UN, sort of, 11 and a half months into this genocide, talking about maybe not killing quite so many children, with 20,000 already dead. I mean, utterly morally bankrupt as well as operationally inept. the United States. And it's a new low. I mean, we've got this going on at the same time as Zelensky now is on his way to Washington to beg to be allowed to strike targets deep inside Russia, effectively asking to be allowed to start World War III. And you've got this cretin, David Lammy, the UK Foreign Secretary, talking to the Labour Party conference today, saying that we need to show more nerve. In other words, do it. It's Britain that's leading the charge towards World War III for some reason. And only some wiser heads in the Pentagon, when Starmer and Lammy were there just over a week ago, prevailed and rang Biden and said, look, the Russians mean it. Our contacts are indicating that this will mean, all out war. So this is I'm not one for hyperbole, but this is the worst international situation of my lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at some of these psychos celebrating here.
He's boom, boom, boom. And I'm here to say, ayo, ayo. We have a name for this operation. Operation Below the Belt. Damn, we have the biggest bowl. But are you left with any? I mean, you gotta laugh about it. When you will get out of the hospital. Without fingers, without a wee-wee, without the ability to see. It's very hard to eliminate you one by one. You were attacking us for 11 months with rockets and suicidal drones. And we did not even shoot one bullet. Just a beep. And in the best case, you had just your fingers that flew off. Boom, boom in the streets. While you're in shopping, maybe you should just stay at home. Not a good neighborhood to live in. We were thinking to ourselves, what does every Hezbollah terrorist carry with them? It's two things. One American student close to their hearts and a beeper under their belt. But how could you know? Just a couple of months ago, you purchased those beepers from Iran. I mean, if you can't trust Iran. Actually, you had to think just a little bit. If someone got to Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian soil, those people can make your balls boil. I know, it's embarrassing. Boom, 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 boom. All over Lebanon and in Syria.
Please put her off. It's too,
too much. It's too much. The like treating it like a victory lap when I don't know, man. This is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean,
can we go back to a world that used to condemn people for laughing at people who hurt themselves? Like, oh, I'm the type of person who laughs at old people falling down. That's not cool. Yet we're laughing about people having their limbs blown off. Get out of here. This is disgusting.
Yeah.
That's another level of perverse. I mean, does a person like that have no soul? How bad can the brainwashing be? That is not the result of like brainwashing propaganda. That is a broken human being. I'm just going to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
And the whole thing with the long range missiles going into Russia, Basil. I mean, we played the clip of Putin last week. His response to that was pretty clear. It's like this changes the nature of the conflict completely.
No, absolutely. We could only hope that the wise heads in the Pentagon, such as they are, continue to hold off on this and tell him where to go and don't cave in. I mean, it's the future of the world is at stake. It's as simple as that. The stakes couldn't be higher. And the idiots saying, oh, well, Putin doesn't mean it. You don't play chicken with nuclear power like this. I'd like to think that in both cases, whether it's the sheer evil coming out of Israel or the complete idiocy in the shape of Zelensky and his supporters, that world populations are waking up to the fact that we're in a very bad place and that we've been misled, mismanaged, that that things have got to change. That's the sort of only bright spark, really. Certainly with the Israel situation, populations the world over, particularly in the global south, are not brainwashed in the same way as, I'm afraid to say, large sections of the American public are, and as the Israeli public itself are. They've been outed. I don't know if you saw that Libyan ambassador speaking to the UN last week, pointing up the hypocrisy. I mean, there is no longer, if there ever was for that matter, any claim whatsoever to any kind of moral high ground by the West, any nonsense about rules-based international orders or any of this kind of garbage, all 100% out of the window. We actually live in an age of barbarism. Gaza alone is 100 times more than enough to testify to that fact, you know. You know, on top of that, things seem to be only getting worse. I mean, actually, Iran has shown remarkable restraint in not retaliating for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, and to some degree, you can say Hezbollah has as well. And you know, but it's this designation of terrorist organizations is one of the problems, you see. This magic word, Hezbollah. I mean, it's a funny sounding term, and the guy in charge has got a beard and looks scary. He looks a bit like he could have been a friend of Osama bin Laden or something. And therefore, in a lot of rather simple minds, that magic word Hezbollah means, well, yes, you can do what you like, even if it does mean mutilating children, you see. Likewise, Hamas, these terrorists, scary word. Do what you like, kill their kill and maim their children too. And of course, one of the things Israel has, you know, worked hard at over the last 25, 30 years is to get any opposition, you know, any resistance grouping in the region designated as terrorists, including the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who are part of that country's army, you know. And then once you've got this terrorist label, particularly since 9/11, you can do what you like domestically, as we've seen in the UK. Supporters of Palestinian liberation like Richard Medhurst and Sarah Wilkinson have been arrested. In Sarah's case, her house was raided by about 15 goons in balaclavas who scattered her mother's ashes, believe it or not, and all because she was reporting directly from friends in Gaza who were witnessing the horror. It's as if there's a phalanx of Shin Bet operating in Britain. It's really, really disgraceful stuff. They've since lifted slightly her bail conditions, but she's fully expectant of another raid. Richard Medhurst was detained at the airport. Craig Murray, a former UK ambassador, was detained when he returned from Reykjavik because he had attended a Palestine solidarity demonstration. I mean, this is very, very scary stuff. And it's all because by a combination of bribery, browbeating, blackmail, and everything else, the Zionist lobby has managed to make itself appear the respectable upholders of democracy, and anybody who opposes their genocide as somehow dangerous, when in fact that's a total inversion of the truth.
Yeah, you know, and when you were talking about designating groups of people terrorists, the way that's done just sort of willy-nilly along with whatever the, you know, the Atlanticist block of intel agencies are pushing for. I think a lot of Americans and Europeans would be good to remember that they have themselves been categorized as domestic terrorists simply for being conservative or being anti-war. There's all these different groups of people that since the Obama administration here in the United States, even further back, you know, we could go back to Ruby Ridge if we wanted to, but you know, in a big way, since the Obama administration, you know, people are calling conservatives domestic extremists. Yet we've got a big contingent of conservatives, the Con Inc. contingent of conservatives that cheerlead this stuff, while they themselves have been called terrorists. So you really got to wonder, like, you know, maybe they're just not worried because they don't use pagers. Seems a little naive to me.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard is a case in point, isn't it? She's on a TSA terror watch list and yet is fully in support of the genocide and presumably as well Israel's actions in Lebanon.
Yeah. Yeah,
What were the
absolutely.
founding fathers of the United States of America considered back in the day?
Right, right. And the document itself currently is classified. I don't know if he's
Extreme.
yeah, it's it's pretty crazy. Let's take a look at this one real quick here. Get your opinion on this. This is out of Zero Hedge. Israel says 10 commanders of elite Hezbollah unit eliminated in Beirut airstrike. The Israeli military has announced that its airstrike in Beirut Friday afternoon, which killed Ibrahim Akil, the chief of Hezbollah's elite Radwan unit, additionally killed in total some 10 commanders of the Shia paramilitary group. They said, quote, "We targeted those responsible for the daily rocket fire, along with senior commanders from the Radwan force. About 10 commanders were killed," IDF spokesman says. So this is
Was this the
definitely,
big bomb? Was that the bomb that we saw the video of with the
I,
shockwave?
I assume it is. Did you see that footage, Patrick, of, Basil, of the explosion in southern Lebanon? It was a massive explosion.
Yeah, I've seen footage of various explosions in Lebanon. Yeah, I mean, again, are these American bombs being used on civilian populations in a country that America isn't at war with?
That's what I would like to know. Yeah, where'd these come from? Are these
Yeah,
from the $8 trillion that was printed? You know, I think it's actually more like 12 trillion. But if you combine the Trump administration and the Biden administration, but yeah, are these death machines? Are these bombs? Coming from the ever growing sucking void, which is our national debt.
that's right. 35 trillion at the moment it stands at. Over over $200,000 per taxpayer.
It's
The
crazy.
interest, I know, it's billions in interest payments alone.
Yeah, I was
I'm sure
watching
we'll
you.
get that fixed one day.
Yeah, we can fix this. I was watching you talk to Eric Rice about that. I always like Eric Rice's take on that. I really enjoyed. I was on your last program at TNT. Actually, Eric Rice was on, and you guys were talking about the national debt, and you had the U.S. Debt. What's that website that shows it in real time?
Yes, usdebtclock.org, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's very easy to Google it. Yeah.
yeah. It's just amazing. But yeah, I assume they were American bombs. I would be shocked if they were anything else. I mean, Israel's the size of like New Jersey, right? I doubt they have a whole lot of JDAM factories there. I'm thinking we're probably covering that for them.
Yeah, I mean, 99% certain, isn't it? So, what have the people of Lebanon ever done to the people of the United States to have their bombs dropped on their heads? I mean, it seems the Israelis people keep saying they're determined to drag the United States into a full-scale war with Lebanon and have them support Israel in a ground invasion. I hope it doesn't come to that. That would be a nightmare. But I don't think I've ever known a time where, correct me if I'm wrong, because if you go back into the last century, Ronald Reagan stopped a previous Israeli incursion into Lebanon because he didn't like the sight of the bombs and the bodies piling up. And then even George Bush the first withheld the loan guarantees for the settlements, if you remember, the illegal Israeli settlements. And that was one of the reasons why the corporate media turned against him and he lost in 92. I mean, don't get me wrong. George Bush the first's list of crimes and misdemeanors is as long as your arm, but he did at least vaguely sort of push back against Israel. Now they say that Monica Lewinsky was a Mossad agent and that her role was to humiliate Bill Clinton, who of course got closer than anybody else in the 1990s to a permanent settlement in the Middle East. Finally, of course, at Camp David, when Ehud Barak and Yasser Arafat were unable to come to an agreement. But they got close and relations were better at that point. But now we're in an era where it seems the Zionist stranglehold on Washington is is stronger than ever. Basically, it's absolutely total. I mean, to see that Spock's Matthew Miller smirking in the week about the terrorist outrage in Lebanon, and this endless deflection. I saw somebody posted online. You could literally have Israeli forces herding Palestinians into gas chambers at gunpoint, and the US would say, we're asking the Israelis for an investigation. Or I mean, there was that American citizen shot dead, and Biden started talking some nonsense about the bullet having ricocheted off the ground or something, that it wasn't intentional. I mean, there is absolutely nothing at all that the Israelis can do these days that will invoke any kind of censure from the United States at all. And that's extremely dangerous, because you're talking about a state that is behaving like an out of control homicidal maniac on a rampage.
Yeah. Here's a great example of that too. Ruckus just posted this one.
Oh yeah, you're gonna love this, Basil. They're set to have the United States add some insult to the injury. This is crazy.
Yeah, U.S. House passes bill to label products from Jewish settlements in the West Bank as "quote unquote" made in Israel. So here comes Capitol Hill. The U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill on Thursday that designates products from illegal Israeli statements in the occupied West Bank as originating from Israel. The bill is titled the Anti-BDS Labeling Act, and it solidifies a Trump-era policy that critics argue undermines Palestinians' UN-recognized territorial claims and champions Israel's annexation efforts while directly targeting the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, sending a clear message against those advocating for the Palestinian side. So, yeah, it looks like Basil had to jump out there, but great example there, Ruckus, of exactly what he's talking about. I mean, this is they've been fighting.
We're talking about an American policy, a United States policy that is like this is. I don't know. This is I've seen some wild stories this year, and this is actually going to be added to my list of what the F. This is just crazy to me. But
there's a collision course, because just last week the United Nations General Assembly affirmed that, not that it was necessary, as the Libyan ambassador pointed out, shouldn't have waited decades, that the occupation is illegal under international law and must be dismantled. And here you have the United States going in completely the opposite direction, even though the official US government policy is for a two-state solution. So you've got the House now passing a bill that is actually contrary to official US government policy. Is this going to be vetoed by Biden? One would hope so. But I suppose the lobby would characterize vetoing this as anti-Semitic or some other nonsense like that. So, sooner or later, there's going to have to be a reckoning about all this. The UK government are absolutely petrified that they're going to be asked by the ICC to sign the arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, because, of course, they're signatories to the ICC. Israel lodged various complaints and objections last week, all of them out of time, all far too late to be considered by the court. So, this global constitutional crisis, as I've called it, is only set to deepen, because the institutions that are supposed to maintain this so-called rules-based order are being openly defied, not just by Israel, but by its sponsor, the United States. This two-state solution, when is that going to come about? How is that going to come about? First of all, the fighting the genocide in Gaza has to stop. One of the reasons why I think it hasn't stopped, as much as Netanyahu is fighting for his own political survival, is that as soon as it does stop, everybody's going to be saying, okay, what happens now? Now we need a permanent settlement. And of course, the only permanent settlement Israel wants is the total evisceration of what's left of Palestine and its people, continued ethnic cleansing and genocide. That's their permanent settlement to the Middle East. So when is the world actually going to do something about that? You know, I mean, why do we not have United Nations forces landing in the West Bank now to keep the peace and expel, start dismantling the settlements? They're illegal under international law. I mean, Israel has broken international law so many times that, as Craig Mokhiber said, the former UN representative, the danger is that he now thinks it can carry on doing so. And so, frankly, can loads of other countries in Africa or the Far East or wherever, because the system's obviously broken. We have an exception to it. We have a state that is allowed to do what the hell it likes.
Yeah,
Basil,
man.
real quick, do you think there would ever be a time where a governing body such as the United Nations would attempt to hold a Western country such as the United States or the UK to account for their participation and conspiring alongside these terrorist attacks against the Palestinian people?
Well, one would hope so. I've seen unconfirmed reports that South Africa is planning on adding the United Kingdom and United States to its case at the ICJ for genocide, and rightly so. Israel has been pressuring the United States to pressure South Africa. And again, you'll see this coming up in the weeks and months ahead to drop the case. Typical gangsterism. And people also suspect that the judges at the ICC may have been personally threatened or their families threatened by the Israeli gangsters. But even on a political level, there's every chance that that United States so-called House of Representatives, all, well, 95% of them there's only one, isn't there? One Republican, Thomas Massey, who doesn't have an AIPAC handler. All the others do. They're going to start trying to pass legislation to sanction South Africa for having the audacity to stand up to international law. So, rather than actually, maybe we ought to do something to rein in these mad killers in Israel. No, they're going to go the other way, and they want to sanction the country trying to hold them to account. I mean, it's just absolutely off the chart stuff.
Yeah, the irony of going after South Africa too is not lost on many. We've got some. It looks like this is somewhat breaking news here. Heavily armed Israeli troops raid and close down Al Jazeera's West Bank office.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, they've absolutely no right to be there, let alone close down Al Jazeera's office. But this is, they've already closed the Al Jazeera office in Jerusalem. And Al Jazeera and its journalists were amongst the first people to be targeted after October the 7th, because Israel likes to operate in the darkness. No journalists, international journalists, are allowed into Gaza because they will see the sheer hell on earth that has been created there. Israel has always preferred to operate in the dark. For decades before October the 7th, the systematic oppression in the West Bank was routinely not covered by Western corporate media outlets. Very deliberately downplayed as a theater of interest to people in the West. And that's with the connivance of the Israelis. They don't want journalists there. They don't want reportage. They don't want people to see what they're doing. Finally, last week, when they started throwing bodies off roofs, that prompted a sort of mild comment, didn't it? I mean.
Yeah. Tim
Do not play
Dawson.
that one, Hesher. That was all. I saw those videos.
Yeah, I don't even want to put that on screen. Tim Dawson, Deputy General Secretary of the International Federation of Journalists, called the Israeli military's closure of Al Jazeera's bureau in Ramallah, quote unquote, utterly shocking, and said it's part of a long-standing effort to suppress free reporting. Speaking to Al Jazeera from London, Dawson also added, quote, journalists have been blocked from entering Gaza, targeted in the region, and critical media within Israel has faced suppression. The attempt to silence Al Jazeera is atrocious on many levels. It's appalling that soldiers were sent to intimidate journalists armed only with microphones and notebooks. Carrying it out at 3 a.m. Was likely intended to heighten fear. Well, yeah, that would do it. That would do it. You get combat soldiers coming in at 3 a.m. to a media location and shutting them down in a country that's not even their own. Very, I mean, I guess this fits, though. This fits with this so-called democracy that we're supporting in Ukraine, right?
That's right.
Journalists.
That's the only democracy in the Middle East, remember, as well, you know.
Right.
Meanwhile, they control. I mean, obviously, you kick out the competition, and now you're like the only one in town, and now you get to shape the narrative and the coverage coming from that region. There was this other report that just came out. I just dropped with you, Hesher, about I can never say this one right. Al Arabiya, that the news outlet.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, yeah. Saudi-owned Al Arabiya in bed with Israeli army to shape Gaza coverage. New report can be found at thecradle.co. Israel's Hebrew language public broadcaster Khan reported that the Saudi-owned Al Arabiya satellite news channel is directly cooperating with the Israeli army. The channel receives exclusive information in exchange for presenting a positive image of the Israeli army to its viewers in the Arab.
I mean, how is it actually possible to paint a positive image of the Israeli army while it's just sort of murdering civilians en masse? You know, and then stealing women's bras and posing in them and all these other atrocities they've been involved in. I mean, the catalogue, if you go back now, you know, the mass executions of people with their hands zip tied behind their backs in the grounds of the Al Aqsa Hospital, the Flower Massacre, that poor girl in the car, Hind, and the hell that she had to endure, the drones flying overhead constantly, playing sounds of babies crying so that when people go out into the street to help, they get shot at. I mean, and that's just a tiny, tiny number. The journalists that have been killed, the medics that have been tortured to death in the Israeli prison gulag. You know, we need to, you know, a book needs to be written really about, you know, from October the 8th onwards, the systematic annihilation. And with, as John Mearsheimer has pointed out, and as that dreadful woman celebrating the terrorist attack on Lebanon illustrate, with considerable glee and sadism. This is the other thing. We can't get away from this. It needs to be said that they really are enjoying, you know, the slaughter. Simple as that. Reveling in it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's you're right. This does deserve much better documentation. There's a number of people on X that are doing a good job at bringing a lot of this to light. I do see a lot of people sort of taking the red pill, if you will. There's also a new documentary film by Alexis Bloom. It's called The BB Files. It features leaked interrogation footage from the trial of Benjamin Netanyahu, and it was screened at this year's Toronto International Film Festival just a couple weeks ago. So this one is going to be a bit problematic for the narrative that they're trying to spin, and for people that are, you know, searching for some context here. This film is taking, you know, there's a lot of chatter going around about Matt Walsh's new movie being suppressed in theaters and stuff, but boy, you don't even hear conversation about the BB Files being suppressed. But boy, howdy, let me tell you, it is being suppressed big time. This is a movie they don't want the general public seeing.
Well, no surprise there. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So,
Basil, have you heard about?
I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to have this free speech or freedom of reach or whatever the joke is about Twitter, because, you know, I think we mentioned him in the boiler room, but Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of X/Twitter, responded to these Lebanon pager attacks similarly to this with these Glee, and she did the Elon Musk one short reply, just an emoji, and it was an explosion. So she was like, yeah, I'm all for this, basically, okay. And Syrian Girl called her out on it, and next thing you know, Syrian Girl gets blocked from Twitter. Like,
Yeah.
what's up with
Right.
that? So
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on, X?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
is going on? I noticed she's back. I saw her today in my feed, so that's good. But definitely, she got the ban hammer for
Yeah, it was a very bad look on X's part, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. Like I think she has enough of a followership that it actually does them more damage to their narrative control to take her off. So I'm guessing that's probably why they put her back in.
Meanwhile, Basil will probably never ever be allowed back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm gonna launch a fresh appeal next week. I haven't done so since I was originally kicked out in February of this year. I replied to a post by the former Israeli spokesman and proven liar, Elon Levy, stating that I thought the perpetrators of the genocide in Gaza should face the same punishment as the Nazis at the end of the Second World War following Nuremberg, some of whom were hanged, of course, but not all of them. And he took that to be a personal threat that I wanted to see him hang. And that, of course, isn't permitted. So that's why I got kicked off. But
That's arguable. I mean, you were talking about a legal process that
that's right.
eventually end in that outcome. I mean, it's not like you were calling for, anything else or the public to do something.
Exactly. I was calling for international law to be upheld. That's all.
This
So,
is funny because I'm guessing there are celebrities and politicians, we'll just use Trump as an example, where I could probably find maybe just one or two, not too many comments from deranged people saying, I hope you effing die. I'm going to hunt you down. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to skin
yes,
you alive.
exactly.
Yeah, and they still have Twitter accounts. But no, not
Yeah.
Basil. Not Basil.
No. So we shall see. We shall see. Yeah. It would be useful, obviously, because we're in now the post today's news talk era. For the time being, at least, a beacon of free speech has temporarily been extinguished. I know that the management are optimistic of relaunching sooner rather than later. So, watch this space, but it may well be under a different name. And for the time being, of course, all three of us were very fully employed by today's news talk at various points over the last 18 months, more on than off, certainly. And it's very disappointing. I mean, what we can say is that I take my hat off to the management for defending our ability and right to say whatever we like on air without any editorial interference. And I don't know if that played a part in its demise, but I know that Mike Ryan and Jenny Squires are both fully committed to a genuine freedom of speech platform, and that includes, of course, the difficult subject of the Middle East.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it was difficult, because you had the full spectrum of analysis and opinions over there. And, um, to my knowledge, we've never seen a platform that big, pull something like that off. Not just to be around for, almost 3 years, but to take this is, you know, what happened on October 7th and everything since has led to a situation that has been greatly polarizing in the media, especially in independent media, and especially now on the timeline. When COVID came along, it was like most people just shut up. Most people couldn't figure out what was going on at first. Um, but it didn't take very long for a lot of us to figure out what was going on and, rattle about it. But then, you had sort of your more it became the Overton window shifted and it became okay to politicize COVID. And then all of a sudden you saw this great coalescence of independent people, alt media people, mainstream conservatives sort of linking up arms on the COVID scam, at least to a certain extent, maybe all walking up to and peering over the edge of Wuhan lab leak perhaps. But when October 7 happened, it caused great polarization, ripples, bifurcation in that somewhat new block of media people. And it's really unfortunate, and we
Yes.
definitely felt the ramifications of it in the larger pool of analysis over there at Today's News Talk. But to Mike and Jenny's credit, they never told any of us what we could and couldn't say.
No.
It didn't work that way. We kind of, and I myself I had co-hosts that had different opinions than me, and we
You're
had to,
not kidding.
yeah, and we had to figure out how to navigate that ourselves, and we were left to do that. So um it's a huge loss, and I think that I know that both Mike and Jenny were practically living in that studio, 18-hour days, more often than not. And it's really a shame. I don't know that had played a part in the disagreements that may be happening with investors and management, but maybe it did. And if it did, I I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of glad to not know, because it was so just polarizing in general. You see a lot of echoes of COVID, a lot of unfriending going on.
Yeah, I mean, it gets people's emotions going more than any other issue. Simple as that. It's sort of it's the third rail, isn't it? Depending on what your position is, but albeit at a terrible price. I would hope that while obviously there are still homicidal maniacs out there who support terrorism of the kind we saw in Lebanon last week, I would hope that some of those of a previously more neutral position might now be aware, or sort of lukewarm Zionists, as it were, might now be aware of quite how evil that regime is. Not the diehards, obviously, not the Mike Pompeos of this world, but you would hope that more sort of fair-minded people who sort of, might have generally had some sympathy towards Israel will now have woken up to just what a nightmare it is and what a danger to the world it is.
Yeah, and they try to make that difficult for people by doing things like shutting down Al Jazeera, and killing journalists and disallowing journalists from being there. But arguably, in the long run, that only makes their case more difficult.
And trying to pass laws that says if you're anti-Zionism, you're anti-Semitic.
Oh, I know that's coming down the freeway on your side of the pond. I mean, there's going to be some First Amendment battles, I would imagine, about that. It's going to end up going to the Supreme Court.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the foundation of all of this. It's the biggest elephant in the room concerning what we're seeing since before October 7th, obviously. But it explains everything. It all makes sense. If we could all just have a giant lesson in history about not just particularly Zionism. I'm speaking exclusively and implicitly about Christian Zionism, because that is, as far as I'm concerned, why we see like conservative Con Inc. people and their followers following along and also clapping and jumping for glee and while professing to be Christians. Again, I'm not going to get all into it here, but again, I think this is probably the bigger problem, and it's a larger discussion more of us need to be having. I'm certainly going to do an attempt moving forward to do just that. I don't know what that might look like, but wish me luck, everybody. Because as a Christian, as a professing Christian, I claim some responsibility for all of this. Although I, as a reformed, Christian, I don't believe in this idea that Israel, the nation, is what's described in prophecy, which is what Christian Zionists believe. But yeah, I think this is a problem. It also explains why the Christian people in America and the UK are like so gung-ho for Israel without even knowing anything about it, right? It also explains why the quote-unquote left are so gung-ho about being pro-Palestine without really knowing much about it. Because the most people on the left are professing non-believers. They're usually atheists. So the religion thing doesn't factor in for them at all. And all they see from a secular worldview is what we all can recognize because we have critical thinking, and that's mass genocide and terrorist attacks on the part of Israel. So, but it's all explained under the foundation of this notion of Christian Zionism, which is a faulty belief. Come at me, but I have evidence for this. Again, I'm going to be exploring this as we move forward.
Well,
Your
absolutely.
careers outside of TNT.
Oh, absolutely, Adam. I mean, just to finish off on the Christian Zionism thing, my understanding, and I was active in my Christian union at school. I was born again of water and the Spirit after hearing the story of Nicodemus, is that thy people Israel, as referred to by Christ, is the followers of Christ after his crucifixion. That is the new Israel, not the people who turned their back on Christ. That's the thing that Christian Zionists, I mean, of course, we had this Schofield Bible and a very conscious attempt to sort of muddy the waters, as it were. But, you know, traditional theology, go on.
I was going to say there's a lot to that history of how that happened, which is what I want to explore and bring to the front because, yeah, I mean, you can sit here and look at this stuff and study history and realize, oh, that's how they did it. It's a lot of the same propaganda stuff that they do with their education, with our government, with the internet and news and media. It's all the same. So anyone who understands that stuff would be able to look at this and be like, oh, I get it now. And then hopefully maybe things might change. We'll see, though.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you've got Christians who basically worship the state of Israel more than they worship Christ. You know, it's bizarre. It really is. And yet, there's certainly large numbers of Jewish Israelis who despise Christianity. And you regularly see clips on social media of them spitting on Christian pilgrims in Jerusalem and desecrating the Christian churches in the Holy Land as well, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, and constantly under attack. They break in and smash the statues and all that. Have you heard about that? You know, I mean, it's just sort of so how Christians can possibly support this, or indeed the murder of Gazans, Christians in Gaza, you know. But there's just such this massive blind spot as a result of brainwashing and indoctrination down an entirely faulty theology.
Yeah, and many Western churches have really had to sort of marginalize much of the New Testament to be able to claim support for all the Talmudic talking points. It's been pretty amazing to see the change, and that, like Ruckus said, there's just been so much propaganda that's been woven into culture, from school to day school and everything that's led to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to be a preacher these days, a Christian preacher, you usually go to seminary school, and that's where you're learned. I mean, it's all ingrained right from the beginning in all of that. So as soon as these people leave seminary and then go lead churches, they don't even know that they're leading their followers down the wrong path. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this, from a lot of people that I've spoken to, this is why a lot of people have taken their relationship with Christ and with Christianity into their own home instead of, going to a structure, to do their worship in, because, a lot of people just, they can't find it, they can't find the right one that works for them. I think that probably, explains a lot about the massive rise in orthodoxy in the West also.
Yeah, the Orthodox churches have been bolstered. Go on, Adam.
I was going to say it's a shame because corporate worship really does have power to it when a bunch of true believers are gathered in one place in Christ's name praying. But we don't see that like hardly anywhere these days, which also explains, if you believe in that stuff, then, oh, wow, there's a lot of wickedness happening around the planet. What has changed in our lifetimes? That might be part of it, just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing the Christian Zionists tend to miss is that the people that they are supporting have actually been amongst those undermining Christian values in the West, promoting transgenderism and denigrating
owning pornography companies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Even rap. If you look at the people that funded Diddy, who's in the news lately, and others, even Eazy-E's label, P Diddy's label, and there's a couple more. I have in a post somewhere. Somebody did a great expose on that. But yeah, it's in a lot of the you'll find it at the head of the snake at a lot of the cultural engineering initiatives too.
Quite apart from the Sacklers, of course, and their opioids, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And getting back
We
to
know
the
what
explosion.
Rabbi
Go ahead.
Shmuley sells.
Oh,
Right?
yeah. You get Rabbi Shmuley, who's duct taped to RFK's back. Getting back to the explosions here, Creative Accidents posted a headline. You can find this at The Telegraph. Inside Israel's history of inventive assassination methods. We talked about this on Boiler Room. There's precedent for this terror attack that we saw. The byline here is exploding books and poisoned toothpaste among techniques used to hit targets with mixed results. Yeah, mixed results for sure. You don't know who's going to open a book or squeeze the toothpaste or pick up the beeping beeper. Absolutely amazing. Let's see.
Hesher, I guess they've been saying they can't hear me. I'm sorry about that. I will do a better effort of getting closer to the microphone.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that proximity helps a little bit there. Thanks, man.
Here's another story just on CNN.
Oh, lost you now, Basil. We lost you at CNN.
Yeah, if I navigate away, it loses it. But I'm just seeing a story on CNN that Netanyahu is considering a plan to force all Palestinians out of northern Gaza.
Mm.
What have the British and American governments got to say about that?
Right? I mean,
mass ethnic cleansing.
That creates a like a Warsaw Ghetto sort of situation where everybody's packed into the south end, and then it's like, and there's no food. They'll do anything to get out of there, and I think ultimately that may be part of the plan, is to just do mass quote unquote refugee deportations to who knows where, all over probably. Yeah. Reading about the Warsaw Ghetto situation is not fun. It's as horrific as reading our current events in the Middle East.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Anything further on the Middle East situation, Basil? I want to get your opinion on a couple other things too.
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. So go on.
Well, getting back to Donald Trump, there's they're now saying, well, I guess 4 days ago they were saying in Nassau County that they found explosives planted in a car at Trump's rally site in Long Island. So we've got that. We've got.
Oh, I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, that was news to me. And then we also had a bunch of people get sick at one of his rallies, or something happened, a chemical irritation of some sort. And then the discovery of shooter number 2, which was interrupted. But I mean, what do you think about all this, Basil? Where is this going? Do you think that's it, or do you think this is gonna be the season of assassination attempts between now and November?
I think probably the latter. I mean, are these events joined up? How did, as we said on your final appearance on today's news talk, how did Ralph know that Trump was playing golf that day at that course?
Yeah,
he must have had some kind of information.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it yet, but Jimmy Dore's got a segment saying a Secret Service whistleblower has come out and said that the first shooter was an inside job. There's something very, very strange going on. The Secret Service themselves have said that they don't think they can adequately protect Trump with the resources that they've been given. They can't guarantee his safety. Now, it's bizarre because the usual actors, as it were, well, he's very much on their side. Nobody did more for Israel when in office than Donald Trump, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. They even named an outpost in the Golan Heights after him, didn't they? Trump Heights or something. So in terms of his relationship with the Israeli state, he's taken Miriam Adelson's money. He should be on board. So therefore, we have to look at the war that he is opposing, which is the one in Ukraine and Russia. And obviously that played a big part in Ryan Routh's motivation. Are there other deep state actors who simply don't want to allow him back in the White House? Jeffrey Tucker of the Brownstone Institute told me a couple of weeks ago that he'd heard from Washington insiders that no way will Trump be allowed back in the White House, period. And of course, we've also had Dr. Jerome Corsi on my program talking about how an algorithm inserted, he thinks, by the CIA into the voting software allows an external operative to dial up whatever election result they want. So whether it's by assassination or by rigging the polls again, there are certainly powerful forces that do not want him back in the White House under any circumstances.
Yeah. And we heard that from Google as soon as he was elected. We've heard that even people in his circle, like Vivek Ramaswamy, has mentioned it. This has been said for a long time. So I guess this is what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, is there any connection between the two shooters, between the Pennsylvania guy and Routh? What's the connection to these explosives found in a car? Lots of unanswered questions still, aren't there? And Florida, of course, is conducting its own investigation, which has riled up a lot of the liberal media, saying, "Oh, well, DeSantis has no business conducting an investigation in parallel to the FBI," but the FBI have been out to get Trump. They've made it very obvious that they are. So,
yeah.
5 known assassination teams in America out to kill President Donald Trump. 3 of them foreign in nature. Of course, is he looking to pin this on Iran? Because we also had that story last week that the Iranians had hacked the Trump campaign and were passing in sensitive information to the Democrats. I mean, if you believe that, I've got some shares in a diamond mine under my bed, I'd like to tell you,
Well, this is coming from Representative Matt Gaetz, but I thought it was interesting, the timeliness of this one just a few days ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 5 known assassination teams. I mean, wow. Does he detail what they all are? Does that include the 2 shooters, or is it 5 fresh ones?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if this is common knowledge, why is he out golfing? Why is he trusting the Secret Service after what happened before? Why is he not? I mean, if I were him, I would not be going out on the links without knowing that there was that I had 100-meter bubble around me at all times and spotters on all the rooftops. I mean, this is one of the only people in the United States that can make that kind of security detail, and it's not happening. Reading from Gateway.
Skip the first few paragraphs because it's just we already know up to this point. But where it says as Breitbart reports.
Okay, as Breitbart reported, Representative Matt Gaetz appeared on Breitbart News Daily on Thursday and dropped a bombshell. He had met with a senior official in the Department of Homeland Security who revealed there are at least 5 known assassination teams in the United States out to kill Trump. 3 of these are foreign in nature, and he's listed Iran, Ukraine, and Pakistan. So yeah, that's very convenient there that we've got all these different options. So if something goes bad, they can blame any of those 3 countries or a domestic source if they want. So um, just amazing. It's like if
Yeah.
Homeland Security has this intelligence, like why is there no action being taken on it? Why are blue-haired psychos allowed within that sort of proximity of Donald Trump? I mean, you don't even need the spotters on every rooftop out there. You just need a drone with a heat camera on it to spot someone hiding in the bushes like that. So, I mean, I'm no security expert, but I was able to think of that. Why not the Secret Service?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would have thought that if it's the United States deep state, if it's permanent Washington that doesn't want him back, they'd rather rig the election than kill him. Because they rig the election again, he's just a sore loser. All he ever does is whine about elections, but we all know American democracy is perfect, and this just paints him in a very bad light, and he disappears off a sad and bitter old man. Whereas if he's assassinated, he becomes a legend and a hero and a martyr. So I think that the Ukrainian threat is probably quite real. If he wants to bring the war to an end, and that means some kind of compromise deal with Russia retaining or at least granting some kind of autonomy, some independence to the provinces in the east that it currently occupies, whereby they're no longer governed by Kiev, even if they're not governed by Moscow either. That's enough. That kind of plan is enough to put a hit out on him from Zelensky's band of brothers. So Pakistan, I'm not quite sure why the Pakistanis would want to bump him off at this point.
Hesher, you might know the name of there was a movie. I think it had something to do with Aces, 21 Aces. It was a movie about there was one target and there were like a crap ton of multiple assassins all gunning for this one person. And they were all kind of not even closely related to each other, but they were all gunning for this one person. And that's how I feel like this Trump situation is playing out. It seems like there's so many different things and not a single one of them are connected to the other, but it's just all being allowed to happen. And the proverbial they are just waiting for the you-know-what to hit the fan. And Basil, I disagree. I do firmly believe strongly, based on my research into the secret societies and looking at the dollar and the little pyramid and the order out of chaos and Illuminati and Freemasons, the elites at the top really do ultimately want some sort of massive amount of chaos, whatever that looks like, wherever that is, so that they can come forward with their ultimate form of control. I just don't know how localized that is or if that's a global event. But here in the United States of America, I could see a group of people just loving the idea of a president being assassinated, having society fall apart, and some sort of bizarre civil war, martial law thing sets in. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you might be right. You might be right. I mean, I would have.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, but I thought they would be happy enough just with their puppet Kamala Harris taking over, because she and other Democrats like Hillary Clinton the other day and Tim Walz have all been talking about clamping down on free speech on social media. So I don't know that they necessarily need the chaos that would follow a Trump assassination to get to the next stage of their plans.
Yeah, well, they certainly have options. There's a lot of options on the table at this point. It's hard to tell what direction we're headed in here. One thing, speaking of the election and where this is all headed, and narrative management, this is kind of interesting. Let's take a look at this. This is with regards to Kamala Harris's rallies. And by the way, that movie, I think, Ruckus, is called Smokin' Aces. It's a 2006 American action thriller, and it's got Jeremy Piven, who plays a magician turned mafia informant. And check out his name. His name is Buddy Israel. That's the name of the character he plays there. But yeah, it's about this Buddy Israel character is hiding in a Lake Tahoe hotel while his agent negotiates a potential immunity deal with the feds. And it turns into a big assassination plot thing. So check that out. It's called Smoking Aces.
There's a lot of revelation of the method in that movie. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at this one real quick here.
We're going to get to some data from the Kamala rally. 5,003 mobile devices at Kamala Harris's rally in Charlotte, North Carolina on Thursday afternoon. It appears over 3,600 came from Georgia, mainly Atlanta, Georgia, and approximately 720 from Savannah, Georgia. So that's a North Carolina rally with almost 80% of the attendees being from Georgia. After you do the math, that's only 600 or so local people from North Carolina that attended. That's all who shows up, and you're planning to what, get 80-something million votes again? Something ain't right. And then all these people come from buses, and it's kind of weird because at the Trump events, you don't really have like organized buses like that. People just kind of show up and park on their own. But at the Kamala rally, there's just these lines of buses at every event, which is weird. And a lot of people are also the same people that attend multiple rallies. Can you read those tweets? Any of the same ones from previous events, because this guy's tracking the cell phones, I guess. And he says 90% have been to 3+ rallies. 54% were even at Arizona and Nevada rallies. So it's all the same people. And as we've said in the show before, Kamala's support is all fake. Yeah. It's all contrived. It's not very real. And that seems to be the proof. It's not all. Obviously, everybody here has a relative or a person who like, oh, I'm voting for Kamala. I can't stand Trump. But there's a difference between voting against Trump and then going to a Kamala Harris rally where she's going to do a black accent. 90% fake. Yeah. You convinced me. 90% fake.
All right. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
They make some good points there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not surprised at all that Democrats are busing the same supporters all around the country because they can't afford to take the chance of nobody showing up, as happened with Biden and his rallies 4 years ago. Although it's, not a metric that is necessarily recognized by pollsters, the optics are abysmal if nobody turns up to see Aaron. It would very soon be noticed. So, it just gives a further illustration of the circus that American politics is these days.
Yeah.
They should just replace her with a piece of paper that somebody carries around everywhere, and all it says is, "I'm not Trump." Who are you voting for? I'm voting for not Trump. Yeah, period. That's all these people care about, the ones who are genuinely voting for her, as they pointed out. It's only because she's not Trump. They would vote for a rock. So it's really silly.
Yeah.
Way to go.
I've had people tell me that Trump is awful, and I'll vote for a plastic fork over Trump. And but like they pointed out in that video, those are not people that are going to go to a Kamala rally by and large. Just not going to happen.
Not unless they're paid.
Well, all right. Yeah, if they have a real job, then yeah, maybe. Wow. And then we've got oh my, what else? Let's talk about 23andMe for a second. Did you guys, Basil, did you see that all of the board members of 23andMe left the board suddenly?
No, go on. I've got to go in it. I've got to go in a minute, by the way, guys. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see here. Let me play this clip for you real quick, and then we'll let you go. I want to get your take on this. MJ Truth Ultra says, "This is why 23andMe is evil. Spit in a cup, you get a family tree and a genetic predispositions. Cool, right? Sounds cool until you realize your DNA can be sold and weaponized against you. Sounds cool until
my God.
Is a mechanism meant to be a front end for a massive information gathering operation against an unwitting public." Check out this clip here, and then we'll bid you farewell. Oops.
Information can be sold and weaponized against you. The alarm being sounded. Listen to this.
You can actually take someone's DNA, take their medical profile, and you can target a biological weapon that will kill that person. And people will very rapidly spit into a cup and send it into 23andMe and get really interesting data about their background. And guess what? Their DNA is now owned by a private company and can be sold off. We have to have an open and public discussion about what does the protection of healthcare information, DNA information, and your data look like, because that data is actually going to be procured and collected by our adversaries for the development of these.
Yeah.
Nightmare. What a nightmare. What a dystopia. All the things technology could be used for the benefit of humanity. And this is where we are,
Yeah.
It's a sad commentary on the state of the planet in many ways.
Yeah.
Considering what we just saw happen with that unconventional warfare tactic involving exploding devices that were created into these little, makeshift bombs because of an interruption of a supply chain, I'll just let you use your imagination, folks.
Yes, and let's not forget that one of the founders of 23andMe, Anne Wojcicki, was married to Sergey Brin, the founder of Google, and the sister of the woman that recently passed away that was CEO of Google. So some interesting connections there.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm choking on this black pill, Hesher. Wow.
Yes. No, Basil, I know you got to get going. Thanks so much for
being. My pleasure, and I'll see you all next week, all being well.
All right.
Oh, Basil, by the way, that was an amazing performance of My Way. I'm sure you've probably heard that.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed that. I'm glad you caught that. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Mike Ryan's final show. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Basil. Thanks so much for
Cheers, everyone. Bye for now. See you all again soon.
There goes Mr. Valentine. So the 23andMe thing is pretty interesting, Ruckus. I don't know what to make of it, but we've been tracking 23andMe for quite a while.
I missed this, but I guess what happened was that there was some sort of a breach. So what that scenario that I was just teasing actually happened because, computers get hacked, things happen, and I guess there was some sort of release of this genetic information. So I really need to catch up on this. Is that what happened? And then these guys simply decided to resign before it turns into a big problem, from what I can tell? I know the CEO just stepped down just a few days ago, right?
Yeah. The rumor is the entire board has stepped down, and I'm not sure if it's been officially connected to data breach or not, but this is one of the arguably one of the most coveted big data databases that technocracy has created thus far. It's basically the Human Genome Project, an opt-in Human Genome Project.
Oh, here we go. Last week, 23andMe agreed to pay $30 million in cash to settle a class action lawsuit accusing the company of failing to protect customers whose personal information was exposed in a 2023 data breach. Somehow, I'm guessing that they don't necessarily mean the person's name, phone number, and email address, Hesher.
Probably not. I think this gives new meaning to PII, personally identifiable information. Never mind your social security, your address, your driver's license, your biometrics. This is next level.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time ordering anything from a grocery store or a restaurant moving forward in the future, Hesher.
Yeah, I know. It's bad. And then not to get conspiratorial, because I don't know that there's been much admission about this, if any, but we had all those spit tests, all those booger swabs that happened during 2020 and 2021. Some people are still out there opting into those things. Where do those all get sent? That's definitely got some DNA.
Weren't there a small handful of these crazy, kooky, tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorists who are expressing concern that a mass collection of people's genetic material, like they're doing with these swabs, could be a problem? Oh, and here we are. We just watched a mainstream news piece about exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. MJ Truth ends their post on this with, "There is a race to collect Americans' DNA to win a race to control the world's biodata." And who knows what else. Very well said. Yeah, it's disturbing, actually, to think that who knows? Now before it was technocratic corporate agencies and governments that held all this information. They're selling that stuff to governments. I've seen reports that China has access to it already. But now it's who knows? Who knows like what could be done with this data and who has it at this point?
I'm guessing actually, Hesher, that in order for a company like 23andMe to exist, they probably have to already ahead of time agree to a contract that says that they freely offer these things to various militaries and governments. That's just a supposition of mine.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure we could go to the website and look at their terms of service and all their fine print and find enough to support that theory there.
Yeah, of course, in reality, they probably just sell it to a bunch of advertisers. Maybe this is not as big of a conspiracy theory as we think, and rather than them like targeting us on the genetic level for destruction, they're just going to target us on the genetic level to sell us more crap we don't need.
Yes, yes. Just got a snippet here from Creative Accidents. It reads, in May of 2007, it was reported that the Russian government banned all exports of human biosamples. The reason for the ban was allegedly a report by the head of FSB, presented to Vladimir Putin. The report claimed about ongoing development of quote unquote genetic bioweapons targeting Russian population by Western institutions. So Russia takes it seriously, apparently. And then, Adam, you flagged up this one for Boiler Room, and I don't think we actually had time to cover it, but this plays in also. Scientists store human genome on crystal, which can last billions of years. The University of Southampton team hopes the data could be used to bring humans back from extinction in the future. And there's a little clip there, a little image. The 5D memory crystal has been inscribed with the full human genome and can last millions of years. So there's scientists are saying that the team from Southampton's Optoelectrics Research Center, the ORC, said the revolutionary data storage format that can survive for billions of years can be used to record the genomes of endangered plant and animal species that are faced with extinction. University spokesman explained that unlike other data storage formats that degrade over time, 5D memory crystals can store up to 360 terabytes of information without loss for billions of years, even in high temperatures. Well,
So they could probably send this thing to Mars if they wanted to. I'm not
right?
trying to give them any ideas. They probably thought of this weird stuff already. This is a Superman movie right here, Hesher. This is like, so after Earth is long and gone, we'll have everything about who and what we are as a species, and probably even on the individual level stored in these 5D crystals somewhere. Who knows? Maybe future generations will be watching episodes of The Boiler Room and Sunday Wire on their 5D crystal.
Yeah, well, funny you mentioned that. Funk in the chat said that one came up in Boiler Room years ago. I remember it. Hesher quoted from futurism.com. It makes me think of the SETI project, like we send these things out into deep space, all this stuff. There's a really interesting streaming show called Three Body Problem based on a book. Similar sort of plot here, except of course it culminates with aliens coming to take over the planet using AI and like some sort of photon based AI. But yeah, this is interesting. Makes you wonder, would they really send our whole genome out into space? Wouldn't that be interesting if a fleet of spaceships came with new clones of all of us after they wipe us out? Get
How
super
do you know they
sci-fi.
didn't do that already?
Yeah, maybe that's why we're in this situation. We're in some sort of deep fake
say it.
biologic AI purgatory now.
Or what Elon Musk calls the simulation.
Yeah, right. The Sim gives new meaning to The Sims for all you gamers out there. Yeah, so that whole thing very different. Oh, this one too. We did bring this one up, but this probably fits in to to this part of our conversation as well. Again, from Zero Hedge here. Pretty interesting. Let's talk about this one. Are New World Order elites plotting to use AI to quote unquote deprogram so called conspiracy theorists? You got to love the graphic for this one that they chose right there out of Clockwork Orange. And it reads a recent study on that subject, underwritten by the John Templeton Foundation, might give so called conspiracy theorists one more thing to be paranoid about, according to Popular Science. Critics have already sounded the alarm that leftist radicals in Silicon Valley and elsewhere were manipulating the algorithms used to train AI so that it automatically defaulted to anti conservative biases. The next step may be programming any verboten viewpoints into the realm of conspiracy theory, then having powerful computers challenge human users to a battle of logic that inevitably is stacked against them with cherry picked data. Probably don't need to read any further than that. And I don't think that's going to be a surprise to many people, but there it is.
Just it's more proof that the ultimate arbiter of truth moving forward into the future will be algorithms, artificial intelligence, these things that we are truly ultimately training. I just saw another headline. I don't have it in front of me. I'll just quote from memory real quick that I guess users of LinkedIn were shocked to discover that without their permission, all of their personal information on their LinkedIn profiles and pages and posts have been training an artificial intelligence program. I believe Microsoft's actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So your co-pilot may try to deprogram you. You got to love how they use the term
Co-pilot.
deprogramming, right? It's like they're talking about programming people, but referring to it as deprogramming them. So the Orwellian, nature of the wording here is not lost on many, I'm sure.
Crap, dude. I just realized, man, why didn't I think of this before? The co-pilot, right?
Yeah.
What purpose does a co-pilot serve on a plane, right? Obviously, they assist as the co-pilot, but the biggest, most number one reason they are there is in case something happens to the pilot, they can take over. I don't like what I just said.
Yeah. I see where you're headed with this. I'm picking up what you're putting down. And, to make that metaphor even worse, we've seen a number of co-pilots, actual airplane co-pilots, have to take over for that worst case scenario since something changed in the human genome. Speaking of the Human Genome Project, around 2021. So we'll leave that at that. Whew, all
Wild
right.
times.
Wow.
Black pill
Somehow,
for everybody on a Sunday morning. Sorry about that.
yeah. Church of Sunday Wire is handing out black pills today for sure. Somehow we found ourselves in the depths of the technocracy here.
And
Yeah.
there's more coming. There's a big thing taking place. I believe it either started just now or it's about to. It's going to be going down. The United Nations Summit of the Future is on like Donkey Kong.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, what are they going to be talking about this year? What do they have in mind for the
Oh, well, of
future?
course, a lot about artificial intelligence, misinformation, disinformation, and how they need to control our rights to free speech to make sure that we can survive said artificial intelligence, misinformation, and disinformation. Oh, yes, it's true. Yet another excuse to clamp down on our rights in the name of protecting us, keeping everybody safe, Hesher. This is we're gonna have to all of us are gonna have to pay attention to this. I had somebody who feeds good information out there, Simon from Florida. He's got a Twitter account, Simon from Florida 2, something like that. You might all know him from various programs. But he wanted to bring to a lot of people's attention, in particular, there's a new, hold on here real quick, guys. I got to find it, put it in front of me here. Okay, so there is a document that you will be able to find for yourselves at the UN's website. I know nobody likes to do that. And it lists the brand new some of the things that the United Nations is going to be discussing and planning for at their summit of the future. And if you can find this document, it is, hold on a second, it's at their website. It's the United Nations, it's the documents for the Pact for the Future, Global Digital Compact and Declaration on Future Generations. It's a very long document, but towards the end are a bunch of addendums that they've been working on. And this is just a first draft, but if you can find this document, do some research, go to page 31 and check out paragraphs 22 to 36. And this is at the very end of the document. So again, page 31, paragraphs 22 to 36. And you can read all about what 2030 global censorship looks like under the loving arms, the embrace of the United Nations. So, but we're probably all going to have to do some reporting about this. I believe folks like Derek Bros from Last American Vagabond is on it. He's out there right now. So check that out. Check out Courtney Turner, who does a lot of work on this. And then I would guess probably also, oh God, what was her name? The curriculum lady, Lynn Taylor. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, good shout out there. Also fits right in with Bilderberg. Why has Bilderberg just had AI as one of their top talking points, their top breakout session meetings for the last 7 years? One must wonder these things, and let's talk about misinformation for a second here, Ruckus. I've got a clip here I'm gonna play. You've seen it already. We played it on Boiler Room this last Thursday, but um, we're gonna look at a hidden camera footage of Dr. Jay Varma. And if you don't remember him, or if he only sounds familiar, he's the former senior advisor for public health to the New York City mayor's office in 2020 and 2021. So, he's one of these people that was talking about misinformation, people like us that were saying, hey, masks don't do anything, social distancing doesn't do anything, shutting down people's lives only destroys them and is not protecting anybody. But apparently we were misdis and malinformation speakers for saying these things in 2020 and 2021. Never mind what we said about the jabs and all that. But this guy, did he put his money where his mouth is, or is he more like Gavin the nuisance, gruesome nuisance Newsom? Let's take a look here at what they captured. I guess we have to give credit to Crowder and his team for collecting this video. Who knows what someone had to do to get this footage, but let's take a look at it.
So how did you convince him to do this?
Well, I had actually been talking to him about it since even before the vaccines were available. I was like, you're going to have to do it this way. And so he came up with this metaphor. We're going to climb this ladder. We're going to first start voluntarily, and then we're going to keep pushing it.
So the way we do it in public health is we make it very uncomfortable to be unvaccinated. The vaccine is like, oh, you can't get a job. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to school. It's like, I'm just going to get vaccinated.
So was it technically like kind of forcing people?
Yeah, that's what you force people by making it really uncomfortable. The car comes with seatbelts and airbags. You have to like actively, and it beeps all the time. So you can still drive with a seatbelt, right? The car doesn't shut off, but it beeps all the time.
Right.
That's considered a seatbelt. Right?
So brilliant.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. The whole idea is like you build barriers so that people are like, just do it because I'm tired of being wrong.
So it was like kind of forcing people.
Yeah, and the whole point of the education is, this is where I have like all these talks. I give people public health about it. It's like, people think, oh, I'm going to give you lots of information so you'll do the right thing. No, the reason I give you the information is so that I'm going to make it really hard to be unvaccinated. And then I'm going to also give you a lot of information about getting vaccinated and why it's good. So that once you finally say, it, I'm just going to get vaccinated, you at least know that, oh, well, at least they told me it's really safe. So do you understand the difference? They didn't get vaccinated because they heard it was safe. they gave in because it was really hard.
It's not so much about finding them and arresting them. It's about making the default, what we call the default choice, the easy one. So you just have to do it that way.
I mean, are people even really smart enough to deal with this on their own?
No, that's why we require it. And that's why I told you about the education. It's like, I don't expect the education to change your behavior. I'm just going to make it really hard for you to do your job. And then I'll give you education so that when you finally give in, you'd be like, oh, well, I guess it was the right thing.
Yeah.
All right. I think that one's actually different than the one that we played on Boiler Room, but I'm glad we got to see a different piece of it, because in the other piece there, he was talking about the lurid adult sexually oriented parties that he was attending in hotel rooms, because what he was doing was so hard. It was so difficult. His job, he had to blow off some steam by breaking all of the rules that he was just talking about there, coercing people to follow the bouncing ball of the Covidian cult regime. And a little peek right there into, what someone actually thinks who may be out there involved in shutting people's free speech down.
Oh yeah, and I guess there's some other people who are interested in shutting down our lives. So one of the listeners just sent this to me, other side of the mountain. I missed this. Just looks like this might be an older thing, actually. Maybe from 2021. Was that what this was?
Yeah, it's September of 2021, so it's 3 years old.
Okay, so I don't know. But yeah, let us not forget that who these people are that call themselves our leaders. They suck. Let's just leave it there.
Right. And they want to accuse you of committing mis, or malinformation for simply speaking, for simply analyzing, for simply sharing information, reading information. And there's a great international push now to shut that down. And I reference all topics we've talked about today because they all fit right into that. And you mentioned the UN thing. Look at UN Agenda 2021. Look at where we were in the final phases of 2019 and how far away they were from some of those goals. And then fast forward just 18 months later, many of those unchecked boxes were checked by the experience of 2020 and 2021. So when they talk about what the world's going to look like in 2030, you best take it seriously, because even if we hit 2029 and we don't see all the boxes ticked, get ready, because there may be some big polarizing event, some black swan style event that light speeds us, pun intended, into Agenda 2030. So these things are not to be taken lightly.
That's interesting, because I was just reading a headline about there's some talk that from the UK side that Britain needs to prepare for an all-out war with China over Taiwan. What year? 2027. That's just 3 years before 2030. So that's interesting. So yeah, there's a lot more things that we have to look forward to. I mean, we got the Ukraine-Russia thing still going. We got Israel and Gaza things still going. I'm always we have to make it through the election, probably at least another handful of attempts on Trump's life, I'm sure. But I'm just curious, when aliens, do you think we're going to see something crazy? Do you think there might be some astronomical type event next? Because they always like to throw something at us that we haven't seen before. So maybe an asteroid? I don't know.
I just saw a headline about an asteroid 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I saw a headline about an asteroid headed toward Earth, and I immediately started thinking about all of the sci-fi movies and all this trash about that. And of course, we've got the some might say fake, some might say dodgy, some might say I want to believe disclosures coming from Pentagon and Pentagon adjacent, officials and such. Like this has definitely been going on for the last couple of years, and we saw a new wave of it just a couple of weeks ago. I personally, Ruckus, I think that yes, 2030, if they are a lot of unchecked boxes on the Agenda 2030 in 2029. It might be time. It might be time for Blue Beam. It might be time for massive global AI deepfakes. I don't know what you call a deep fake in the sky made of holograms and whatnot, but whatever that kind of deep fake is, who knows? Who knows? Maybe they'll take that Human Genome Project and create some strange little lab-oriented, crush down homunculus humanoid thing and unleash it in the public. Who knows? Everything's on the table. My money, if I had to place a bet for the aliens, will be 2029 or 2030. That's kind of where I'm putting that one on my bingo card, Ruckus.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I could see it happening.
We just got too much going on right
the
now.
whole world could look completely different in 6 years. Just ask yourself how it looked 6 years before now, and then ask yourself what it looked like 6 years before that.
Yeah,
it's a fun game.
It is. It's amazing. Talk about the escalation. Talk about exponential,
especially when it comes to technology and
Yes.
science and all that garbage. Anyway,
100%. All right, that's all I got this week, Ruckus. Do you got anything else you want to throw out there?
Maybe a football.
Yeah,
No, just kidding. No, I'm good. Thanks for having me. It was very nice to catch up with Basil there and have him help us do some of that insanely heavy lifting this geopolitical stuff is sometimes. Definitely, he's more skilled at it than us. I think we can admit. This is why we're sorely missing Patrick Henningsen. Again, good to hear. He made a special appearance on the Basil Valentine show on the last day of TNT's broadcasting. So in case you missed that, folks, make sure you hunt that down and check it out. It was great. So nice to hear from you, Patrick, the other day. That was great, and I hope you're doing well. I think you are. Keep doing it. Keep getting stronger, getting healthier, and we will see you before we know it. Again, Hesher, thanks for having me. May God bless each and every one of you, and God save this republic.
All right. Thanks, Ruckus. We'll see you again real soon here, and thank you for hanging with us here at the Sunday Wire. You can find, if you're just joining us, you can find the podcast version all over the place. We're spreading it far and wide. AlternateCurrentRadio.com, 21stCenturyWire.com, out there on Rumble and X and Rockfin and Spreaker. We'll be back with you hopefully next weekend. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Big shout out to everybody in the chat rooms. Saw some wonderful comments over there at 21 Wire. Sorry I didn't get to read some of those out. I'm looking at them now and wishing I had, but that chat does remain. So if you're out there watching, you can go to 21stCenturyWire.com, read the chat comments, and you're also free to join our Discord. It's called Boiler Room. That's what we named our Discord. So head on over there. We've got a special channel for these Sunday Wire live broadcasts. It's great to see all of our regulars and friends and see some new people in there. Thank you for joining. There's an invite at alternatecurrentradio.com in the main hamburger menu. And that's it. We're out of here, and we'll see you again real soon. Don't forget to go to 21stCenturyWire.com and support. There's a support link up at the top if you want to join 21wire.tv or become a member over there. We'd love to have you, and thank you to our members over there. You guys keep us going. We really appreciate it, and Alternate Current Radio needs your support as well. We have support links also. We'll see you next week. Have a great rest of the weekend and a wonderful week.